Good morning to each and every one of you. I'm honored to have an opportunity to present to SB185 to this committee. I know our chair is not here as of yet, but nonetheless, you're a wonderful substitute for our chair. So I want to thank the illustrious chair of the Black Legislative Caucus of the California State Legislature for opening up this hearing. To the members, again, good morning to each and every one of you. SB185 that is before you today directs the two state pension plans, CalPERS as well as CalSTRS, to divest their thermal coal holdings consistent with their fiduciary responsibilities under state law. SB 185 aligns our investments policies with our values. Since 2007, the state of California has prohibited our utilities, our IOUs, from investing in new coal power plants in order to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. Coal combustion for energy generation is the leading cause of climate change. According to the United States Energy Information Service, coal plants are the nation's top source of carbon dioxide, CO2 emissions, the primary cause of global warming. A typical coal plant generates more than 3.5 million tons of CO2 carbon dioxide per year. Burning coal is also a leading cause of smog, especially for those who live in the Southern California basin, Long Beach, San Gabriel Valley, San Fernando Valley, again, the Southern California basin. Acid rain, toxic air pollution that contributes to respiratory diseases like asthma and emphysema. The number one cause for absenteeism in our public school system in the state of California is due to asthma. This is especially acute in the Central Valley, parts of Los Angeles County in the basin, as well as the Inland Empire. And aside from the health and environmental hazards it creates, bottom line is coal is a risky investment that is rapidly losing value. In fact, according to The Economist, which is a right to center publication, the market value of America's four largest coal companies have fallen 95% in the last 5 years. That is from the year 2010. They were valued combined, the four leading American coal companies, at $22 billion. As of today, the value is $1.2 billion. And the decline is accelerating. The United States will shutter 12.8 gigawatts of coal-fired power this year, 4 times as much capacity as we shut down last year. Now, this demand for coal, or the lack thereof, domestically in the U.S. is not just here in North America. More specifically, the demand in China, the world's largest coal consumer, is down 8% this year, calendar year. Their imports have fallen 38% from last year as their economy slows and they take steps to clean up their air. So the bottom line is, colleagues, is the writing is on the wall. Our policies, our technologies, and global markets are still moving in concert away from coal as an energy source. So why continue to invest our public employees' retirement funds into this fading industry, especially given the multitude of health and environmental concerns it creates? Divesting of coal is not only the right thing to do, but it's also the prudent financial decision. According to CalPERS, the portfolios currently contain approximately $167 million in coal investments. This is a fraction of the overall portfolio of both CalPERS as well as CalSTRS. California is a world leader in the fight against climate change. Certainly, we can find much more sustainable, profitable investments for our public pension funds that better suit our values. In conclusion, Mr. Chair, as well as colleagues, SB 185 recognizes what analysts are saying. Coal has become a bad investment. I'm working with CalPERS as well as CalSTRS to ensure a smooth divestiture process, and neither fund opposes this measure. With that, Mr. Chair, as well as colleagues, I respectfully ask for an aye vote.
Thank you, Senator De León. And as is our custom, we have, if there are witnesses in support, we allow 2 witnesses, 2 minutes apiece. So whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. It's an honor to be here. My name is Daniel Lashoff. I am the Chief Operating Officer of Next Gen Climate America, the policy advocacy group founded by Tom Steyer. You know, last week Pope Francis issued a profound and inspirational call to action, urging all people of goodwill to confront climate change. And SB 185 would require California's public pension funds to respond by divesting their portfolios from thermal coal. As the President Pro Tem said, this is both the right thing to do and the prudent thing to do. Earlier this month, Tom Steyer addressed the CalSTRS Investment Committee and laid out a framework of 5 questions to answer when considering divestment. I'd like to just review those briefly with you this morning. First, he asked, does the activity of the company cause substantial harm to society? With respect to coal, the answer is undeniably yes. Coal combustion, mostly to generate electricity, releases more carbon pollution per unit of energy than any other fuel. And coal-fired power plants are also a source of mercury and other toxic pollutants, as well as particulates, which pose a significant threat to our health and that of our kids. Second, is coal replaceable? Absolutely. As the President Pro Tem said as well, California's electricity system is already nearly coal-free and can easily eliminate the remaining imported coal over the next few years as we continue to increase our reliance on renewables, particularly wind and solar. Third, are coal companies a long-term compounding asset that's appropriate for a large pension fund, such as CalSTRS and CalPERS? The fact is no. The U.S. is moving rapidly away from coal, and as it does so, the value of the stock is plummeting. Again, as the President Pro Tem said, their value has dropped by an astonishing 95% since 2010. Fourth question is engagement with coal company managers likely to materially address the problem? And again, the answer is no. While it is theoretically possible to capture carbon pollution from coal-fired power plants, the cost of doing so is much higher than the cost of simply replacing those power plants with cleaner energy sources. Fifth, and the last question I'll address is the long-term cost to the beneficiaries from divesting from coal? And the answer is that cost is minimal at worst and quite possibly beneficial. As we said, coal stocks are plummeting. They're already a tiny portion of the portfolio and growing smaller all the time as their value continues to decrease. In fact, when Tom Steyer went back over the last 35 years, he couldn't find a period when being invested in fossil fuels was a distinct advantage. But there were certain periods when it was a distinct disadvantage. Now, obviously, past performance does not tell us what the future will hold, but it is worth considering that the energy sector in 1980 was 28% of the S&P 500 index. At the end of 2014, it was just 8%. So to conclude, SB185 would require California's public pension funds to do the right thing, both for the public interest and for their interests of their beneficiary. I strongly support the bill, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Additional witnesses in support?
Great. Good morning, Senator De León and committee members. Thank you so much for having me here today. My name is Jody Newman, and I am an investment manager at Trillium Asset Management. Trillium is one of the oldest investment advisors focused exclusively on sustainable and responsible investing. We are Boston-based, but we also have San Francisco offices. And I'm here to testify in support of the SB 185. Our employee-owned firm has managed socially and environmentally screened investment funds for individuals and institutions since 1982. And we have seen growing interest in our fossil fuel-free investments, which now represent about 50% of our over $2.2 billion in assets under management. Trillium also acts as a sub-advisor to the Green Century Balance Fund, and Aaron Gray is here today from Green Century as well. And Green Century has a fossil fuel-free mandate as well. The fund is highly rated on performance by Morningstar, earning a 4-star rating. And through April of this year, the fund has outperformed the Lipper Balance Fund average for 1, 3, 5, and 10 years. In our experience, fossil fuel-free investing has been a credible investment approach. Since 2007, our fossil fuel-free core strategy has outperformed the S&P 1500 by 40 basis points annually, and that's net of fees. I want to share my perspective as an investment manager who fully understands the demands of building portfolios that seek to minimize risk and maximize return. Some have argued that divestment from coal and all fossil fuels could potentially increase risk and lower return because you're narrowing your investment universe. Recent independent studies have shown that investors can go fossil fuel free without major negative impacts to portfolio performance. Investment firm Apiro Group estimated that excluding fossil fuel companies from 1988 through 2013, a 25-year period, would have an annual standard deviation from its benchmark of just over 0.25%, which has virtually no riskier in terms of volatility. They also report that over a 10-year period, a carbon-free portfolio outperformed its benchmark by 73% over this period of time. MSCI, who's a leading provider of investment decision and support tools, looked at the impact of excluding companies owning carbon reserves from one of its index funds, the MSCI All World Country Index. It determined that over a 5-year period, the active return differential was 1.2% better than the same index without fossil fuel investments. And at Trillium, we utilize a portfolio optimization software to help us manage the exclusion of fossil fuel stocks from a portfolio. And it helps us find other stocks that closely correlate with these stocks in terms of beta, or the volatility of a stock in terms of the market, and the size of the companies we invest in. And investors can also seek to identify substitutes that closely correlate with fossil fuel companies to minimize risk and tracking error, which is a variation with the benchmark. Many clean technology and industrial companies provide energy efficient products such as LED lighting, power management, commercial building, and efficiency controls. And I believe that an investment portfolio can provide competitive returns over the market cycle while managing a conscious choice to avoid fossil fuel investment exposure. And I'm pleased to know that this committee is exploring that option. Thank you.
Thank you. I want to first express my apologies to Mr. Pro Tem. Thank you for your leadership on so many areas, including on this bill, and for bringing this bill forward. I was delayed in coming over from a Senate hearing, and thank you to my colleagues for getting the committee started and moving along. I want to, at this point, establish a quorum. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Bonta.
Here.
Waldron. Here. Cooley.
Here.
Jones Sawyer. Here. O'Donnell, sorry. Rendon. Wagner.
We have a quorum. Thank you. And just a reminder, we were doing 2 witnesses with substantive comments, and then after that, we're asking just name, organization, and position.
Morning, I'm Erin Gray with Green Century Capital Management. I've got over 13 years of experience in the investment field, and I'm here in support of SB 185. Thank you.
Thank you. Additional witnesses in support.
Morning, Mr. Chair and members. Justin Milan on behalf of the U.S. Green Building Council. We believe that we should put our money where our mouths and our lungs are. We urge aye vote.
Good morning. My name is Christian Molina Cornejo from the Sierra Club, and we support this bill.
Christopher Castrillo on behalf of the California Faculty Association in support.
R.L. Miller, Chair of the California Democratic Party's Environmental Caucus. The California Democratic Party supports this bill. Thank you.
Linda Rudolph, Public Health Institute. We support this bill. Coal's bad for our health, bad for the climate, and bad for our investments as a CalPERS pensioner. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Rick Guerrero, SEIU Local 1000, and on behalf of the 95,000 workers that serve the state of California, we ask that you support this bill for the future of our members' investments. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Linda Escalante. I'm here on behalf of NRDC, the Natural Resources Defense Council, in support of this bill. We shouldn't invest in coal, which is going to destroy us. Thank you.
Chris Brown, 350 Sacramento, and a CalSTRS family, and we support this bill as a family and as an organization.
I'm Carla West from 350.org. We strongly support this bill.
Malin Dorman, ordinary citizen, in support of the bill.
June Sugar, nurse. I support this bill for my asthma patients.
Environment California, Dan Jacobson, strong support.
Jim Lindberg on behalf of the Friends Committee on Legislation of California, in support.
Thank you. Seeing no additional witnesses in support, do we have witnesses in opposition? Please come forward. We're going to ask that we have 2 witnesses limited to 2 minutes each with substantive comments, and then if there's any additional witnesses, just name, position on the bill, and organization.
Good morning. Marty Fisher on behalf of the California Chamber of Commerce here in opposition. We believe that this bill, excuse me, unfairly targets one type of business from which to divest, and it leaves us wondering which industry or businesses will be next. Coal is out of favor right now, and we're concerned that our members could be targeted in the next round of divestiture. We think that decisions, investment decisions, should be made based solely on sound economic principles. The committee analysis has identified that there will be significant costs with this divestment. So we urge you to give funding of retirement obligations the highest priority to protect those who depend on it for their retirement.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. Dawn Kepke on behalf of the California Manufacturers and Technology Association, also in opposition for the reasons stated. Thank you.
Thank you. Additional witnesses in opposition? Seeing none. Any comments or questions from committee members? Seeing none, we can entertain a motion. We have a motion and we have a second. Mr. Pro Tem, would you like to close?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I'm hoping that with the support of the California Democratic Party that we may move Ms. Waldron in support of the measure. I don't know if that will carry any weight with Ms. Waldron, but try my best, in every which way. I just want to say thank you very much, Mr. Chair, as well as to the members for giving me an opportunity to present this bill. The last point I just want to really underscore is that CalPERS and CalSTRS, the board members, the CEO, as well as the CIO, have a fiduciary responsibility to their pensioners, whether they're teachers, whether they're folks who work, very hard to make a living. And as I wrapped my brain around this measure, which is the critical issue of thermal coal and what the negative impacts are with regards to climate globally, we also have to have in mind also what are the potential ramifications, unintended consequences with regards to our pensioners, first and foremost. And I think that we feel very confidently with our conversations as well as negotiations with the governance structure of both pensions, both CalPERS and CalSTRS, that it will not have any negative impact at all whatsoever on our pensioners, given the fact that the portfolio is limited to begin with, and plus the value in itself has dropped so dramatically. It's the right thing to do for public health, but just as importantly, because it is the right fiduciary financial decision, and look for other ventures that obviously bring a much higher return to the pensioners. With that, again, I want to thank you very much for giving me an opportunity to present this measure, and I respectfully ask for an aye vote.
Thank you, Mr. Pro Tem, for your strong leadership on this issue. I'm proud to support your bill today. We have a motion. We have a second. The motion is due pass to appropriations. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Bonta?
Aye.
Bonta, aye. Waldron? No. Waldron, no. Cooley? Jones Sawyer? Aye. Jones Sawyer, aye. O'Donnell? Aye. O'Donnell, aye. Rendon? Wagner?
The bill has 3 votes and will remain on call.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Pro Tem.